uh, is our agenda, and to give you a quick roadmap of what to expect. After we go through introductions in just a moment, we are going to hear from the project team that will give us an overview of the Ormond Beach coastal restoration planning process and the public access planning, and share with us some of the concepts that are being explored right now. And then we'll pause for Q&A. And then we're going to go into small group discussions. Each group will have the same set of questions. And then we'll all come back together again and wrap up. On the next slide are our tips for productive meetings. They're pretty basic, but important. So first of all, we're really happy that you're here and you've joined us today. Throughout the Ormond Beach planning for coastal restoration and public access, community input and input from other stakeholders has really been critical and has been considered. And so we are hoping that you're here today and you're going to actively participate and keep providing input. And then another important guide is for everyone committing to all of our attendees today participating, sharing their perspectives. And so when we're speaking, we just try to stay as concise as possible to create as much time for other people. And on the next slide, we're just going to do some quick introductions of the project team, so you know who's here with you today. And I'm going to first hand this over to the Nature Conservancy. There are 3 project partners, and so we'll hear from all 3. And Pete Dixon's going to go first.
Hello, everyone. I'm Peter Dixon. I'm a restoration project manager for the Nature Conservancy, and we are one of the landowners of a portion of Ormond Beach, about 310 acres, and one of the planning team project partners.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sally G. I'm a project manager with the State Coastal Conservancy, and we own about 270 acres along Arnold Road at Ormond Beach. And the Coastal Conservancy is a state agency established in 1976 to protect and improve natural lands, to help people get to and enjoy the coast, and provide funding to support these types of projects. And we're excited to be meeting with you all today. Thanks.
My name is Annie Jensen. I'm a project manager with the city of Oxnard, and the city owns about 95 acres down at Ormond Beach, and we are very happy to be partnering with the Nature Conservancy and the State Coastal Conservancy for this project.
Excellent. I'm going to hand this over to Robert Sweet, who is the project manager on the consultant side.
Thank you, Joan. Robert Sweet, I'll be serving as project manager, as Joan said. We also have Russell Prang, is our design lead for the project, and then Jordan Blomberg, our senior project advisor. We also have Sonia Vargas serving as one of our interpreters today as well.
Awesome. And then everyone, I'm Joan Isaacson. I'm with Kearns and West, and I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you before in other public meetings. It's always great to be here in Oxnard and with you in community like this. And with me is Danielle Berger and Brisa Villas, who are going to be helping to facilitate the small groups. And we just want to take a quick moment. It's always good just to learn a little bit more about who's here. And so we have a question for you, and you can just type your answer into chat, whatever just comes to mind. But we really would love to hear a quick answer from you about what is a priority for your community in 2025. Again, you can put the answers in chat, and I will do some reporting on that as the answers come up.
Put in chat who you are. It's in the chat.
It's in the chat? Okay.
They're both on.
All right. I'm not seeing anything in chat right now. Reese, are you seeing anything? Okay, a couple are coming in, so I'll just quickly report on them. Some priorities that have been offered from our attendees to protect. A priority is to protect the Ormond Beach wetlands and provide a resource to South Oxnard, coastal access, and coastal resiliency. So thanks for jumping in on that.
How do you
Alright,
manage that? Okay.
And someone else's whose name is also Joan, like mine, said safety and preservation of endangered species. And then we heard another answer about protecting communities from flooding. So keep your answers coming in. That's really helpful for us to just see what's top of your mind as we're starting this meeting together. And I'm going to hand this over now to Peter Dixon to give us that overview of the project at Ormond Beach.
Thank you, Joan. Next slide, please. Ormond Beach is located on the coast of Ventura County and is situated within the city of Oxnard. And the 2-mile stretch of coast from the city of Port Hueneme to Naval Base Ventura County at Point Mugu. And the planning area that we'll be discussing today is approximately 650 acres that consists of land owned by the Coastal Conservancy, the Nature Conservancy, and the city of Oxnard. And these are known collectively as the project partners. And many of you know that for decades, the community has sought to protect Ormond Beach. And this has occurred in response to several proposed development projects that galvanize the community and help articulate a vision for Ormond Beach that led to the eventual protection of the lands, first by the State Coastal Conservancy in 2003, and then the Nature Conservancy in 2005. And also in 2016, the city of Oxnard passed a local ordinance that further protects natural resources at Ormond Beach. Next slide. Ormond Beach area is composed of a variety of habitats, including the Ormond Lagoon, wetlands, which include salt marsh and freshwater wetlands, upland scrub, coastal dunes, beach, and agricultural lands. These habitats are home to as many as 30 rare species, including endangered or threatened species such as the western snowy plover, the California least tern, who both nest in the dunes, and the tidewater goby, which lives in the Ormond Lagoon, and the Belding savanna sparrow that lives in the salt marsh areas. Although the wetlands have been drained and degraded over the past century, Ormond Beach remains one of the few areas in Southern California with an intact dune to marsh and then upland transition that's not interrupted by major infrastructure, such as highways or the railroad. So that creates the opportunity for habitats to migrate inland in the event of sea level rise. And for these reasons, Ormond Beach is considered by wetland experts to be one of the most important wetland restoration opportunities in Southern California. Ormond Beach is also a very valuable recreational area for the community in South Oxnard and the region as a whole, and in particular for disadvantaged communities of South Oxnard with limited access to park and natural open space, and a legacy of industrial development along the coast. Next slide. The Ormond Beach Restoration and Access Plan that this meeting will focus on was started in 2017. There were a number of studies prior to that, a feasibility study and other studies, but the plan that was completed in 2021 analyzed 3 project alternatives, each with the goal of balancing conservation and habitat restoration with improved public access. The plan was developed with guidance from the Science Advisory Committee and also incorporates input from community members that was gathered through workshops, surveys, and a couple public meetings. And the selected preferred alternative, published in May of 2021, can be viewed along with public comments and response to those comments on the City of Oxnard's Ormond Beach project page. And we'll put a link in the chat to that plan. Next slide, please. So we are very excited to announce that the state of California will provide $35 million to complete the planning and design process for Ormond Beach Restoration Public Access Plan and to implement phase 1 of the project, as well as management funds. And will fund the restoration and public access facilities in perpetuity is our goal. That portion of those funds will go towards long-term management funding. $35 million is a very significant amount that the state is investing in our community and in our environment. So we are just very motivated to complete the plan and see this money go towards implementation and to engage with the community to try and finalize our vision for the plan and help us identify where to focus those funds. So we need your input to ensure that the Ormond Beach Restoration and Public Access Project meets the needs of the community, and in particular focused on this phase 1 project scope that we'll be describing now. So I will turn it over to Russell with Environmental Science Associates.
All right. Thanks, Pete. So, hi, everybody. We can go to the next slide. My name is Russell Prang. I'm a landscape architect with ESA, as Pete mentioned. We are the design consultants for the project, and really excited to be part of this. So we were contracted by the project partners at the beginning of the year to really help progress the design of a phase 1 design for the Ormond Beach restoration and public access improvements. And so that phase 1 design, builds off that previous preferred alternative plan that Pete mentioned that was developed, finished back in 2021, but then kind of narrowing that design into sort of a smaller footprint and defining, what that would look like going forward. So we're looking at, updating those plans based on the fact that it's a smaller footprint, based on the fact that there's some updates, I think, based on some technical studies that I'll get into here for refining some of the public access and restoration design elements. So before we kind of got into kind of this process of updating those preliminary phase 1 designs, the team developed and outlined these technical studies that we really wanted to help form really the basis of the design and help us make really sound decisions. And so briefly just kind of describing those technical studies here. First, we have some biological resource studies that are kind of looking at sensitive biological areas and species and habitat, thinking about what's out there, what could be improved, what areas may be impacted by public access and how to work within those. We're also looking at some more engineering and biological models to really understand the ecology out there, kind of looking at water levels of the wetlands and various habitats that are out there, the salt levels, the different types of vegetation communities, and kind of looking at this mosaic of really complicated ecological interactions that are going on out there to really try to understand them through modeling, and then let that inform some of the restoration design elements. And then lastly, we're looking at some technical studies related to developing the public access elements, and those include things such as a topographic survey, looking at some soil sampling to determine if there's any contaminants of concern, and then some geotechnical studies, looking at areas where we'll have footings for bridges and boardwalks and things like that. So that's kind of an overview of the technical studies. And so now I'm going to jump into, we can go to the next couple slides here. I'll jump into what we're calling kind of the 45% design, which is kind of an update to that preliminary preferred alternative from 2021, and updating those, within this phase 1 footprint. And so this image here shows kind of the aerial of Ormond Beach, and outlined in yellow is our phase 1 footprint. And so just to orient you, Chumash Creek there is to the north, which is to the left of the page. The naval base is to the south, just on the right of the page. And so within that zone, we've identified 4 different sub areas. We've called the Perkins Road sub area on the northern end, Edison Drive in the middle, Tank Wetlands in the middle, and then the Arnold Road at the southern end. And so those are broken down into kind of sub areas for a number of factors to kind of help us define discrete projects within the phase 1. And I'll get into details for each one of those. We can go to the next slide. So this is kind of the update to that preliminary plan, showing the phase 1 areas. And I just want to orient folks on what you're looking at here with some of the colors and symbolism and what's represented here. And those will kind of continue with some of the more zoomed in plans that I'll show following. So thick red, we're showing a variety of kind of trail types for public access. So thick red lines are gravel trails, black lines are more elevated boardwalks, the yellow lines are natural or dirt trails, and then the dashed purple lines are beach trails. And then as far as habitat restoration areas go, those are in the larger kind of colored areas in the background. White is representing the dunes, green representing wetlands, brown the salt pans, and then purple are a little more upland, non-wetland areas. So I'll speak briefly here about each of the sub areas, and then we'll kind of go on a more detail into each one. So first we define the Perkins Road sub area at the northern end of the site. It's really important, we thought, to include this based on its proximity to the South Oxnard community and really the lack of access to the beach in this area. This area already contains a potential parking lot that can be used by visitors, and it's adjacent to this really dynamic, really interesting Ormond Lagoon system. So that presents some opportunities to bring people more in contact with the lagoon, provide access all the way to the beach, and to restore some of the habitats within this unique ecological area of the Ormond Lagoon. Then we next looked at the 3 sub areas to the south, and this avoids the area in the middle, which is the Halito Metal Processing, the EPA Superfund site, where for phase 1, rather than developing those, we stayed away from that just because more studies are needed to understand the potential contaminants and the potential type of improvements that can happen out there. So for this initial phase 1, we're kind of skipping over that area and looking at this next area where at the end of Edison Drive, just north of the generating station. And again, we're looking to focus public access all the way out to the beach and through some really unique coastal wetlands in that area. And those wetlands are really unique, really in all of Southern California, and looking to restore and enhance some of those areas as well. Similar to the Edison Drive sub area, the tank removal wetlands area south of the generating station also doesn't have public access, but kind of dissimilar to Edison Drive. The sub area does not contain any sort of high quality wetland habitat, really due to past development, because until the 2000s, this area was a tank farm where there were several large oil fuel tanks and a bunch of associated, access roads and infrastructure. So historically, prior to that, this area would have been coastal wetlands, and now there's a great opportunity to restore those wetlands and incorporate some trails that will bring people in touch with those. And then lastly, there's the Arnold Road sub area to the south, just north of the naval station, where there's opportunities to enhance and restore some really high quality salt pans and coastal wetlands there, and to also improve upon some of the existing access trails to the beach and within those wetland areas. So let's go to the next slide. So now this kind of just zooms in specifically showing the plan view of that Perkins Road area. And again, just to orient you, the Chumash Creek is there to the left, and the city of Fort Hueneme beyond Perkins Road is just to the east, and then the Haligo property is there to the south. So currently, as you cross the existing pedestrian bridge at the end of Perkins Road, there's this island that's kind of surrounded by the lagoon, Chumash Creek, and kind of a drainage ditch running through the middle of the plan here. There's many habitats on that island that we're targeting to enhance through weeding and native plantings. And to improve public access, we're looking at a few things here, which are pretty exciting, we think. A couple new bridges. So one would replace that existing pedestrian bridge, but then a new bridge across Chumash Creek, which would then provide kind of public access all the way from the terminus of Perkins across both of those bridges and then out to the beach. So that would provide direct access to the beach. And then alternatively, rather than crossing over Chumash Creek, there would be a boardwalk kind of loop that's shown in the black there, where folks could really kind of loop around the island and really experience the Ormond Lagoon there. So to give you an idea of scale, the total sort of loop, from the Perkins Road trailhead all the way around, it's about half a mile. And similar, if you were to go just from the Perkins trailhead, just one direction all the way out to the beach, a little less, that's like 0.4 miles. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So here's some existing photos, just to orient folks a little bit further. The first one at the top is the Perkins drainage ditch that shows the viewpoint is kind of standing on the lagoon side, just north of the existing bridge. And then the second image at the bottom is along the edge of the lagoon on the western side, where we would be proposing a new boardwalk. So in these next slides, I'm going to kind of take folks on a tour of sort of the public access elements, and you'll see kind of the plan view as we see it here, and we'll just kind of represent some design elements that we're thinking of including in certain locations as you kind of navigate through the site. So there's that plan view on the upper left, and sort of that red A there kind of showing the location, and as I go through the presentation, that location will kind of change with what the location for where we're thinking of representing, including some of these representative design elements. So these images are taken from other projects, but they're kind of starting to communicate, we think, some of the public access elements that we're thinking of incorporating. So this would be at the Perkins trailhead. And so there's a few amenities we're thinking of including here. One would be bike parking, just to allow folks to park their bikes as they come, from South Oxnard down Perkins Road. Then to include some more signage and seating in the area, just as a spot to kind of meet and gather with folks and learn some things about the lagoon ecosystem. And then some fencing, some kind of basic fencing, again, to kind of announce this as a trailhead, announce your arrival into this area, and then provide a little kind of safe separation from cars and pedestrians. So now we will head out to the next slide. Onto the trail. And so as you would kind of cross over that bridge across the drainage ditch, we're looking at kind of improving. There's an existing gravel trail there, kind of improving that trail, maintaining that corridor that would then take you over to, you can go to the next slide. That would then take you over to the new bridge across Chumash Creek. And so these images are a couple images of what that bridge could look like. Also, there would be a new bridge across that drainage ditch at the beginning of the trailhead. So kind of showing some imagery here of prefab bridges that can kind of be placed in once you get their footings built, and what those could look like to then provide access all the way out to the beach. Next slide. And so, you know, if you were to not then cross over Chumash Creek, but then loop around, that would then transition into a lower kind of wetter wetland area. And so that would be a raised boardwalk trail really along the edge of the lagoon there, and take you all the way back to the Perkins Road trailhead. And along the way, looking at incorporating things like bird blinds, just so folks can observe birds and other wildlife, and then a few kind of viewpoints where there would be seating and some interpretive signage along that boardwalk. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So I'll kind of do that for each of these sub areas, show the plan, and then kind of get into the images of the elements. So here's the next sub area, the Edison Drive sub area. And so here we're looking at the area north of the generating station, between the ag fields to the east, and then the beach to the west. So this area is divided into kind of three zones. There's the ag field. There's currently a fallow ag field kind of next to the active ones on the eastern side. East of the Oxnard drainage ditch, which is kind of shown as the thin blue line through the middle of the plan here. And then the next zone kind of to the west of that are more existing low-lying wetlands and salt pans there. Shown as there's kind of a faint 3B label there. And then there's the large dew complex west of that before you get out to the beach. And so currently there's no public access trails in this area. And so, you know, some of the improvements we're looking at is number one, restoring some coastal wetlands in that fallow ag area and kind of return it back to historical conditions. Number two, kind of enhancing those existing wetlands that already exist and where we kind of increase some of their function. And then to then provide a new public trail all the way from Edison Road that would go all the way out to the beach. And then lastly, you know, we're looking at kind of incorporating some security fencing in certain areas to kind of protect some sensitive areas like the dunes that are currently kind of being disturbed by some unauthorized ATV and motorbike activity. So putting fencing up to deter some of that activity. Again, to give folks an idea of scale from as far as a one-way access all the way from Edison all the way out to the beach, that would be about 1/3 of a mile. I'm just walking one way. All right, we'll go to the next slide.
Hey, Russ, I just
just-
give you a time check, probably like 5 minutes or so.
Okay, all right, I can speed this up here. These are just some context images showing the salt pans and wetlands that are out there along with the dunes. Next. So for the Edison public access trail, looking at a few trailhead amenities to add there. And because this is a little bit more remote, we're imagining this is more parking lot area that would be gated during certain times. And then incorporating some more traditional kind of, you know, trail signage there that would orient folks and provide some information about what they're likely to see along the trail. Go to the next. And so then as folks would begin along the trail, there would be a gravel path that kind of goes adjacent to some of those restored wetlands in the ag land. And then that would lead to the next. A new bridge, similar to the other bridges at Perkins sub area, a new bridge across the Oxnard drainage ditch that would then take folks over the bridge. We'll go to the next slide to the existing kind of salt pan and wetlands area that are north of the generating station. And so to be sensitive to those areas, we're imagining a raised boardwalk going through those. Wouldn't necessarily need handrails, so it wouldn't necessarily be too high. A little different from the Perkins Road boardwalk, but some sort of raised boardwalk to prevent kind of impacting some of the wildlife and plant communities out there and the hydrology. And then we'll go to the next slide. That boardwalk would then terminate at the back of the dunes. And at that point, we thought, you know, that's a great opportunity for a raised overlook. Something like the image you see here would really provide expansive views out over the beach and the dunes and back at the wetlands. And then from there would be a kind of a roped off access trail out to the beach that would kind of avoid some of the sensitive bird nesting habitats that are within the beach area. And then lastly, this just shows, you know, kind of an example of like a pretty significant kind of hardened fence that we're looking at to provide those security measures for certain sensitive habitats in this area. We'll go to the next. So this next area is the tank wetlands sub area. It's just south of the generating station. Pretty isolated. Currently, it's bound by the generating station and the Oxnard drainage ditch on all three on the other three sides. But the goal for this area really is to restore some of the wetlands in there that were impacted by those development of the tanks. And also kind of introducing more public access to the area to really get people to check out some of these restored areas. For an idea of scale, again, sort of a loop that would to access the trails for this location, you would come all the way from the existing Arnold Road trailhead, and a loop from Arnold Road out into the tank wetlands and back would be about 1.2 miles. So it'd be a little longer, a little more kind of a nature stroll to come check out some more remote areas. Go to the next slide. This just shows some existing imagery of the Oxnard drainage ditch, and then at the bottom, really those really flat kind of areas where those tanks used to be and where new wetlands would be created in. Next. So some sort of boardwalk or bridge would access this area by crossing the Oxnard drainage ditch. Go to the next. And then there would be more at-grade kind of trails through those grassland and wetland areas with a raised overlook. I mean, it's not as high as the one over by the dunes, but a raised overlook would give you kind of views all across those wetlands. And then as you circle back around, go to the next slide, there would be, bird lines again to kind of provide opportunities for viewing wildlife. Okay. So lastly, I'll touch on is the Arnold Road sub area. And so currently there's a trailhead at the end of Arnold Road where there's some parking. And then there's some pretty high functioning wetland habitat there to the north of the gravel access path shown in red there. It's pretty high functioning salt pan and wetland areas there. And then we'll go to the next few slides. That's an image on the top showing those salt pans there, and then the image on the bottom is showing that existing trail from the end of Arnold Road that goes out to the beach. The next slide. So the improvements here, we would look at including some additional trailhead amenities, some additional signage, maybe some shade structures, and then another raised overlook there at that Arnold Road trailhead to get views over those salt pan areas. Go to the next slide. Improving the trail, it would be a gravel trail, kind of replacing the graded asphalt trail with more of a gravel trail, raising it up a little to protect it from sea level rise. And that would become kind of the main sort of primary access trail out to the beach. Go to the next. And so from the beach, folks could walk along the beach and then come to another access point that's kind of roped off again to protect some of the sensitive dune areas. The trail that would take folks to another overlook at the back of the dunes. And then would be then more of a natural path and a dirt trail along that eastern edge of the wetlands that would then lead all the way back to the Arnold Road trailhead. So that kind of gives an overview of the design, and I'll throw it back to you, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Everyone, we have a couple minutes set aside for questions and answers, and then we'll go with the small group discussion. So, Steve, you asked a question early on, and which is, what is the anticipated final cost, and is the project dependent on federal funding at all? And in light of recent events, the election, Steve's wondering if federal dollars are a viable funding source.
I can take that one. There are a couple grant opportunities through the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And so there are some funding from the infrastructure bill that was passed under the Biden administration that we can go after, but we will continue to pursue federal funding as possible, but right now it's being funded by the state. Thanks.
All right, thanks for that clarification, Sally. Noemi, you have a question. You're wondering if the team can show pictures of the Perkins Road sub area now and then after the phase 1 project. So some sort of illustration of what it could be in the future.
Yes. I think he was able to show on the presentation. So
Okay, thank you. David, I see you have a hand up. Feel free to unmute.
Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Yeah. The last I checked, the Halico site was about 26 acres, and it was assessed at like $4 million. I was wondering if any consideration was been given to using some of the money to actually just acquire that site. So when and if it's cleaned up, you could totally cooperate with who's ever cleaning it up. And it's also a natural link between the Perkins Road area and the next one.
Yeah, so team, how have you been looking and considering at the Halico site? Pete, I see you just unmuted, so go for it.
Sure. The project partners have been communicating with EPA in regard to the eventual cleanup. And we haven't been considering the acquisition of those properties at this time, primarily because the EPA has not determined their remedy. It's just an unknown when that cleanup would occur. However, there is some synergy between the proposed project that's in the 2021 plan and the EPA's cleanup goals. And so we think that the EPA could be a good partner to facilitate some of the work on that would both clean up the Superfund influenced area as well as achieve some of our restoration goals. But as you all know, that we've been waiting for the EPA's feasibility study for some time. Sounds like that's been delayed a little longer, but they are getting closer to presenting the remedy for what they're calling operable unit 2, which covers the areas surrounding the slag pile specifically.
All right, thank you for that update. Steve, I know you have a couple more questions, but I'm going to see if I can take the questions from others first so that everyone gets a shot. And then if we have time, we'll come back to some of your questions. Aurora, you had a hand up, and then we'll take Roger's question that's in chat.
Yes, hello. It's kind of related to the question that Steve proposed in the chat, which was, what is the money that is set aside for the cleanup of the Ormond Beach generating station? We know that that power plant is set to be decommissioned in 2026 at the end of the year. And I was just wondering if there's any further information about the cleanup bond, but also are there any sort of study or analysis that is being considered in case there is potential damages to the land as it's being cleaned up and could potentially impact the development of this project?
I can take that. I will have to do a little research and get back to you. I don't know the funding amount offhand. We do have 2 pots of funding, some to decommission the power plant when it is decommissioned, and then also for a park. So let me do some research and get you some of those numbers.
All right, thanks, Annie. And Roger, let me take your question you have in chat, and then I think we'll probably need to start up with the small groups. So the question is, what agency or agencies will manage the whole space, all of Ormond Beach, the entire project area? What funding will support the ongoing maintenance and staffing of the space?
I can jump in. I think as many of you know, we did approach the US Fish and Wildlife Service about the prospect of creating a national wildlife refuge at Ormond Beach. We don't yet, there's not a decision that's been made. And so we don't have any certainty around the long-term manager at this time. However, the project partners are committed to the implementation and management of the project regardless. And so at this time, and our intention always has been to complete the restoration plan while we're trying to identify the long-term manager. And so, but yeah, no updates on the National Wildlife Refuge concept.
All right, thank you for that. We probably, for the sake of time, should turn to the small group discussions. Brisa, can you do me a favor before I talk about the small groups? Can you do the announcement in Spanish to make sure we have people identified for the Spanish Mixteco group?
Ya. Intérpretes va a ser un mensaje en español. Solamente quiero avisar que yo voy a ser la facilitadora para el grupo 3. Si hay alguien que que tiene que estar en el grupo español mixteco, por favor pon tu nombre en el chat para poder ponerte en el grupo 3. Gracias.
Thanks, Brisa. Swan, if you could go to the next slide, please. All right, everyone, we're gonna go into small groups, and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to push a button, or you're gonna be automatically taken to a group, and in each group there'll be a facilitator and a note taker. And we have 4 discussion questions for you. I thought I would preview the questions before we go into the groups, and that way they can be kind of sitting on your brain for the next couple of moments before we start the groups. So the first question, you can see them here on the slide. So the first question is, what phase 1 improvement or improvements that we just heard about from the team are you most interested in? For example, is it the direct access to the beach or walking in nature? Maybe it's the wildlife and viewing and bird watching within natural areas. The second question is, which of the trailhead amenities presented are most important to you? So some examples could be the signage, maybe the seating, trash containers, and we are sure you'll have lots of other examples and ideas in response to that question. The third question on the next slide is that the new trail signage will be installed along the access trails. Are there important locations for the signs, or are there important types of information that you would like the team to prioritize? For example, maybe you think it's important to provide information on signage about the existing plants and wildlife, or maybe the cultural history of the site. And then our fourth question there is, what will help you feel comfortable and safe when you are in each of the sub areas? So those are the 4 questions we have for you, and we're going to go into 3 groups. Like I said, we're just going to be automatically taken there, and I'll be in one of the groups, so I'll see some of you in just a moment. And Brisa and Juan, are we ready?
Yes.